Cyber attacks are a big, big risk for large organizations, and they've got policies and training and insurance. They've got all the things. But what about individuals? I mean, as individuals, we're exposed to some of the similar risks that big organizations face. Some insurance providers are now offering personal cyber insurance. And we're going to talk about what that is, what it costs. James South is our guest. He is an assistant vice president for personal specialty insurance at Aviva Canada. Hello there.
Hi, Bruce. How you doing today?
What are we talking about when we are talking about personal cyber insurance?
So, when we're talking about personal cyber insurance, we're talking about insurance for the Internet of Things. All of our lives now are very online. We're connected in so many different ways, home or at work, your children, your parents, your network is quite online now. And when you think of insurance, we always traditionally think of your home, your auto, fire insurance, physical damage. But the way our lives have evolved, a lot of our lives have evolved to be online. And our exposures there are just as great as our exposures can be anywhere else. You're exposed to bad actors. You're exposed to a lot of people that are looking to take your information for their own personal gain at your expense. And at Aviva, we recognize there's an opportunity here to provide coverage for our customers in a way that can help them navigate this kind of space that's really new and evolving and moving very quickly.
It is very clear if you have a flood or a fire, what a claim looks like, and you just hope you're covered sufficiently. Can you give us some examples of what a claim could look like that would have someone calling their insurance company and saying, hey, it's time for me to collect?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always the fun example that everybody's heard of. You get an email from the Prince of Nigeria that says, unfortunately, he can't access any of his funds and he needs you to transfer his funds, some funds to him right now, and he'll pay you back when he gets access to his bank account. The cyber criminals have evolved in a way. They're looking at different ways where they're using AI to impersonate, say, your bank, or they're impersonating a voice that's contacting you to say, your relative's in trouble. They need help. We need money right away to be wire transferred. Those are some of the classic examples that are happening right now. But, using a personal example, where I live in the eastern part of the GTA, our regional school board was hacked by cyber criminals. And that resulted in a lot of neighbors of mine being contacted with fake phishing emails using some of the information they gathered from this cyber breach, unfortunately, of a school board. So when you're thinking about what I need to collect, it's those kind of situations where you were tricked. We need money for your son's school or your daughter's school. But the information came illicitly and the money's not actually going to the school, or it's not going to a family member that's in trouble. It's actually going to these bad actors.
So what does the insurance provide if you do need to make a claim? Again, to use the simple example, I had a tree fall on my house and, they came and did the repair and paid most of the cost to get me back to a roof that didn't leak. In this case, and with the examples that you've cited, what does the insurance company actually do?
Yeah. So depending on the exact event that happened, say you did unfortunately click on that link that resulted in, you sent some money, but you also clicked on the link. We'll come in and we'll investigate and do kind of a forensic analysis depending on the whole event of your computer system. So is your computer system still safe? What we don't want is you to be the victim of a future event because they've downloaded some kind of software into the back end of your system. The funds that you sent, within the limits of the policy, you can be reimbursed for those funds. We can also help you with other expenses you might have. Say you're off work, you need to deal with some legal documents. We'll support you from legal and advice perspective, getting through the process of getting you back to where you were financially, ensuring that you are secure financially and online, and that your computer systems are not vulnerable to future attacks.
Is this insurance typically an add-on to like a traditional homeowner policy?
That's exactly what it is. So for simplicity, what we wanted to do was not have any kind of standalone special policy you have to buy. You're just adding it on like you're adding on any kind of special thing. You want to insure your wife's wedding ring. You add it onto your home insurance policy. The same kind of idea. You add this on as an endorsement to your home policy, or your condo policy, or your tenant policy, whatever your property policy that you have, you add it on for a nominal fee overall. It gets rolled into your monthly payments, and you have that coverage as part of that package.
Nominal means what? How much?
On average, it's about $6 a month, nominal fee for what you're getting. So you kind of roll it on to the overall year. But really, the premium itself is really small in compared to the different coverages you get. You have coverage for the cyber attack. You have coverage for online fraud, as we were just talking about. You also have a lot of other really great coverages that we've added on, including cyberbullying. And one coverage we added recently, as things kind of evolve, is we've added at no charge, and it doesn't come as a claim, so to speak, on your policy, but dark web monitoring for you or for Aviva customers.
Wow.
Which is really cool, where we're constantly searching the dark web, where a lot of these bad actors, lurk, if you will, for your information, to see if we get a hit. And if we do get a hit, try to get in front of it with you to make sure you're not the victim of a future cyber attack.
Gotcha. And that could mean prompting me to change my passwords or get a new bank account number or something like that?
Yeah, it could be that. It could be your credit card information's on there, or whatever personal information that's on there. We prompt you. And the great thing is we'll give you advice too. The one thing about this kind of evolving space is most people, and myself included, you don't necessarily know where to start. So the simple things you can do, of course, is change your password, maybe change, your credit card number, that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of added things you can do with experts, and we'll provide that advice to you when you've purchased this product with us through Aviva, to help you get through and give you the steps you need to take. The simple steps, of course, as we mentioned, but there can be more complex things depending on the amount of data that is found.
What does cyberbullying coverage look like? I know what the behavior looks like, but I don't know how you'd confront it, let alone have an insurance company support you in that regard.
Cyberbullying is something I'm really happy that we have included in kind of our comprehensive cyber coverage, because when you think again of cyber, you're thinking of that online fraud, but when you think of your extended family, children, teenagers, they're so online now. Everybody's so online. And the pressure that comes with kind of that growing up in a fully online world. There's a lot more, unfortunately, negative events we see and we hear about, and kids are dealing with themes and things they're not necessarily would have dealt with when I was a child, or maybe when you were a child, Bruce. And what we would do is we would support, using the example of a teenager, that teenager going to, say, therapy if they needed it. Maybe they needed to transfer schools. Maybe they needed to not go to their school for a period of time, and some expenses for tutoring to keep them caught up. Also, as the parent, coverage for yourself for, say, maybe some lost wages. So it's kind of a comprehensive coverage for that. And, it's a sad thing that it happens, but it does happen. So knowing you do have coverage for that, I think is really important.
In the absence of digging deep into our policies in other areas of our lives, what are the obvious places where there could be double up on coverage? And what I specifically am interested in is, what does a credit card company do already that would be either an overlap or a complement to what you're offering?
Yeah, so credit card companies may have something around some kind of identity recovery type thing, where you've had your identity taken and you had your credit card used in an illicit manner by a bad actor. They might give you some, reimbursement of those funds, or not actually charge those funds on your credit card, though banks are starting to push back a little bit on that. Where this coverage kind of goes further is we're going to help you every step of the way thereafter, working with whether it's legal firms or, regulatory, what have you, to make sure that your identity is restored fully. And we're not just going to basically say your money is not charged on your credit card. Good luck that you might get with a bank.
This is relatively new coverage. Globally, this isn't something that's been around for decades. Actuaries have an enormous role in insurance companies to assess risk and help price policies. As you've been learning about what these claims look like, How do you cost it out? I mean, it's so different than, I'll use my roof example. It's like, well, we kind of know what that's going to cost to repair. But in this case, who knows what the ransom's going to be? How long is that kid going to be in tutoring for? Like all those things, I can't even imagine the depth of thinking you'd need to do in order that this is still a profitable entry for your company to be in.
It's very fair, and it's a evolving space, and we're learning more and more every day. And there's more things that are coming, online. As I mentioned, we brought in the dark web monitoring just recently, earlier this year. As cyber bad actors evolve, they use AI, they expand. Things are going to change, and we're using our knowledge to this point. We're going to constantly evolve. I think it's one of those, because it's in its infancies. The most important thing I can really say is that everybody should have this coverage and really should go out and seek carriers. Multiple carriers do offer it. I don't think anybody is as comprehensive as Aviva's product on the market. But I would say this is really an exciting and important thing to have coverage for, to make sure you have that full comprehensive protection for yourself and your family.
Really interesting stuff. James, thank you for joining us to talk about it today.
Perfect. Thank you, Bruce.
James South is with Aviva Canada, and he was here to talk about personal cyber insurance. Yeah, it's a thing.